we just had a client who got visa refused, but let me give you the backstory. Okay, he had been waiting for his H-1B visa. He was already approved for the application through the company. The company is a sponsor. In this situation, it's not a company, it's an employer, of course, but it was a university here in America. So we sued the United States government, specifically the State Department, on this because he was already approved. And all they were waiting for was a visa issuance. He was approved for the H-1B application last February, so exactly about a year ago. And then he had the interview shortly thereafter in China. I mentioned China. You already know what's going on, what I'm probably going to talk about, and it's the stinking balloon. All right. Y'all got to know that, of course, we got to take care of our national security. But unfortunately, when there's politics involved and it's immigration, in some scenarios, people will be affected. It's like collateral consequences. All right. Unfortunately, more people than my client could be affected. And we sued the government way before this whole balloon incident. Of course, U.S. government claims that there was a couple balloon incidents or something related to it during the Trump administration. So they claim it happened recently, right? We don't really know. The point is, do not give up. Gather your friends, anyone you know, colleagues who are in a similar situation, okay? Because we sued the government about October. About October. Okay, it takes about average 2 months to get some kind of initial negotiation with the U.S. Attorney's Office for the local court where you sued or where we sued. And that happened. There was a conversation. There was a couple conversations with the U.S. Attorney. And about maybe a week before or less than that, the U.S. Attorney, I can't, of course, share word for word, but he basically alluded to and had us infer that he also believed that the visa would be issued. He didn't say those exact words, but he said a decision would be made. Just a couple days after that, the balloon incident happened. A couple days after that, client got an email saying, with an attachment saying the reason why he was visa refused. So it's a very frustrating thing. That was not expected by anyone, including, I believe, the U.S. Attorney. He claims, of course, after the fact that he didn't say that or he didn't mean to say it that way or whatnot, and that's fine. That's understandable. I can't put what it doesn't matter what the U.S. Attorney said at the end of the day. Politics got involved. All right. So I'm also sharing this because whether you're red or blue, you're Republican or Democrat, conservative or liberal, you always have to be mindful of your own party, especially these days where you're on social media. I've toned it down a lot on Facebook. I don't comment there as much on a personal page just because it really goes nowhere. I believe it's really better to find a silver lining. What can we turn into a positive? Okay, we have to find a solution. So if this client were to try to keep fighting the case on his own, it'd be very, very difficult to change the decision. My legal team and myself, I hire people that want to fight. Okay, of course, legally speaking, to be an advocate for people in the community, especially for immigration. There's, of course, a lot of other things that we're concerned about like people who've been abused, a bit victim of crimes, human trafficking. But specifically for immigration, this is for people who their case have been delayed when the government claims to be the pandemic reason and lack of personnel. This has been an issue even before the pandemic. Of course, pandemic just made it like 100 times worse. That's been very clear in the last couple of years. But in this situation, anyway, back to my Chinese national client, it would be a much stronger case if we're able to certify the federal case as a class action. So in case you know anyone who is in a possibly similar situation as my client has been visa refused, please share our information because y'all deserve legal status. Okay. And why it's difficult to fight this on their own. If you remember the history books of the Japanese internment camps, of course, Japanese Americans were forced into these camps and they had no choice. They couldn't fight it. And even though a case went all the way to the Supreme Court, Kawamatsu versus United States, there was just no fighting chance. All the government said that, hey, if the reasoning is because of national security, the U.S. government's good to go. You can't fight it, essentially. So, if you love history or you just remember that situation, and it's just a very painful situation for folks who have suffered. Of course, there's a whole slew of different scenarios, not just for Japanese, but for other ethnicities that we had to fight the US government. It's ridiculous. I can understand why people, at least initially, appreciated Donald Trump or President Trump at the time when he was running for office. I'm not trying to say that I'm an advocate for him, but because people in general, or I won't say in general, but there's a good amount of people, right, that just are cognizant that the US government is not always thinking in your best interest. They're thinking, of course, in a quote unquote national interest or lobbyist, corporations, all that. So you just have to be mindful of that. And that's why my client was visa refused. If it had been a week before this freaking balloon incident, most likely he would have been issued the visa. So of course I can't guarantee anything myself. I don't work for the government. Pretty sure he would have been approved or visa issued. If your case has been delayed and you're a client of ours from the get-go, from the start, we're going to start contacting you about this. But also, if you are tuned into the show and you file the case yourself or you have a lawyer, don't give yourself a hard time, or don't give your lawyer a hard time either. Not every immigration lawyer is certified in certain district courts, federal courts, and you have to be a lawyer has to be certified in that court to file a lawsuit, or of course get what we call pro hac vice, get sponsored in that court. But in general, not everyone knows about this option. There's a last option called mandamus lawsuit for the most part, for most scenarios. So don't give up, okay, folks? All right, folks, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.